Bill Gager coming to you again from just off the Colorado Trail here in Buffalo Creek. And on today's hike I was thinking about a post I saw on LinkedIn, I think it was yesterday or the day before. And it was a reminder from somebody basically saying, if you want to achieve your goals in 2018, be sure first you have goals and that you write your goals down. And you know, this is something that I believe, either Tom Hopkins or Covey or one of the early people who came out in the 70s and 80s who got into the whole self-help success thing talked about it. And I'm sure it's been around forever, and it's obviously good advice. But it reminded me that there's more to achieving what we want to achieve than simply deciding what we want to achieve, writing it down, and thinking about it. Because, you know, if you've ever read the book The Secret or watched the movie, the whole basic premise of The Secret is that if you think about something enough, you're going to manifest it. And while that can work, it doesn't always work. And so it got me thinking, especially this time of year, as we were wrapping up 2017, going into 2018, about conscious manifestation, consciously achieving what we intend to achieve. Because we're always doing that on a subconscious level. I mean, we're always creating our own experiences, creating our own outcomes. It's just most often, unless we're very self-aware, we're doing this on a subconscious level. And so I've really started to think about conscious manifestation and how to have more control over the circumstances, the experiences, and the accomplishments of my life. And I'm reminded about a couple of key times in my life where I consciously manifested really, really powerfully. The first time was back in 1999. I was still working for a bank as their head of sales training. And it was the spring of 99. And, you know, living a good life, very happy, liked my job, loved my job actually. Lived in a nice house up in Massachusetts. I had 2 kids from a previous marriage who lived in Connecticut. Saw them regularly, drove up and, you know, back and forth to Connecticut on a regular basis to see them. They'd come up, spend time with me, etc., etc. Life was fine. And for whatever reason, I got it in my head that I wanted to manifest a situation where I was living in a renovated, older home down in a town called Essex, Connecticut, which is a beautiful kind of colonial village on the banks of the Connecticut River, and just so happened my kids were living down in that area. And so I just decided, and I took it upon myself to write in a journal. And basically what I did, just going down a really steep hill in the snow, so bear with me. I took out a journal, and what I did was, it was kind of an experiment. And I wrote in that journal, and I must have been reading something at the time that talked about to manifest something, kind of act as if you've already manifested it. And so in the journal, I basically wrote, oh, this is great. Here I am sitting on my screened-in porch in my newly renovated 1800s house in Essex, Connecticut. It's so nice that the kids can ride their bikes over to visit me. We don't have to drive for 2 hours. Renovation went really, really well. Real happy with the way the house came out, etc., etc. And I wrote this at a time where, like I said, had a great job I really loved, no idea of how I would ever move to Essex, Connecticut, nor be able to afford to renovate an old house. And so I wrote it in my journal, and I kind of just put it away and didn't really think about it afterwards. And sure enough, a year later, well, not to the day, but give or take a month, there I was sitting on my screened-in porch on my renovated 1800s house in Essex, Connecticut. And, you know, it really struck me because it was a very powerful example of conscious manifestation without getting caught up in a lot of the stuff that a lot of people talk about is necessary to consciously manifest. Affirmations and all sorts of effort. I basically wrote the description, kind of tucked it away, and it manifested. The second time, and it was in that same time period, the second time I had a powerful manifestation was basically in October, November, December, around this time frame that very same year. And at that point, through a series of circumstances, our bank being bought out, my being offered a very lucrative severance package, selling the house we lived in Massachusetts for a good profit. I was living in the 1800s house. It hadn't been renovated yet, but one thing that I did do was, with my dad, we built an office in the barn. And I had decided, with the bank being bought out and the generous severance package, that I was going to start my own business. Always wanted to do it, so I was going to start my own sales training business. So I remember one day sitting at my desk, and I think it was early December, and thinking to myself, okay, well, you're in business for yourself. You don't have any clients, you don't have any prospects, you have no idea how you're going to build this business. What are you going to do? And I decided at that point, I think I'd been reading Covey, or somebody was talking about the power of writing your goals down. And I said, if I'm going to teach this stuff, I've got to practice what I preach. So I remember taking out a yellow sticky pad and deciding, okay, what do I want to earn in my first year in business? And so I don't know why I picked it, but I picked a number that represented about 3 times more than I'd ever made in my life. And I wrote that number on the yellow sticky pad. And the way my office was, it was on the end of the barn, and it was narrow. It was probably about 8 feet wide and about 20 feet long. And so my desk was pushed up against the wall. And I'm not a big person for pictures and wall decorations. So there was nothing on my wall. And right at eye level, in front of my desk on the wall, I stuck that sticky note with the number that represented how much I wanted to earn, with no idea of how I was going to earn it. And never having made even close to that kind of money in my life. And so a year goes by, and it's October of the following year. And not only has my 1800s house been renovated, but by October of a year, I typically know how I'm going to do. And so at the time I wasn't using QuickBooks or anything, so I had to add up all my invoices for the year and how much money I had taken in. And I had beaten my number on the wall by $20,000. And so those 2 times in that time frame of a year were, to me, very, very powerful examples of conscious manifestation, where I intended to manifest something very, very specific that was outside my comfort zone, or at least I thought it was outside my comfort zone. It was certainly outside of anything I had ever done before. And simply by being clear about it, writing it down, I manifested. Now here's the challenge. Since that time, I have done similar exercises without similar results. And so what I've been thinking about the past couple of weeks, and seeing the post about writing your goals down really kind of triggered me into doing this video, is what was the difference? What's the difference between when I've consciously manifested something that was really out of the realm of possibility in my view at the time, and when I didn't manifest it? And one of the first things that comes to my mind is the energy around the thought of that manifestation. Kind of the way my mind is working, the way I'm feeling about it. And I think one of the key things to successfully, consciously manifest is to have a calm confidence around believing that what you're intending to manifest will manifest. And I know that in the other times when I've tried to manifest consciously, I haven't had that calm confidence. Sometimes I've been cocky and almost arrogant about it, and other times I've been very, very fearful about it. And in those times, I tried to compensate for that type of energy by doing more of the mechanical things that a lot of quote unquote gurus recommend you do, affirmations and positive imagery, and really working with it. And what was interesting, while I do believe those will work, I believe one of the keys, and what I intend to do over the next series of videos, is explore a series of what I believe to be subtle keys to being able to consistently, consciously manifest. But I think one of the first subtle key I want to talk about is this calm sense of connectedness. And the best way I can explain it is, years ago, I had a boat. It was a Sea Ray 30-foot sport cruiser. And one of the things, I knew this going in because a friend of mine actually owned a marina, and she knew a lot about boats. And when I was talking to her about the kind of boat I wanted to get, and I was zeroing in on the Sea Ray, she said, Sea Ray is a good boat. She said, but you got to be very careful. It's not very deep draft. In other words, it sits on top of the water, not down very deep. And so it can be a very difficult boat to maneuver in the wind or in the current because it tends to get knocked around. And my experience with that boat was, if I was trying to drive it, and I was docked on the Connecticut River, out on the river itself. And one of the things about the Connecticut River is it consistently has I believe like a 4-knot current at its slowest, and very often, depending on rains, it could be much higher. And so every time I had to dock and undock that boat, I was fighting the current and also many times the wind. And so the boat would get knocked around a lot. And what I found was, if I was all up in my head and mentally kind of churning and thinking and overthinking driving that boat, I couldn't make it do anything. But if I was calm and connected, and basically the way I did it was, I actually started to take control of this by imagining and putting my attention in the seat of my pants, literally where my butt connected with the driver's seat of the boat. And I'm reminded of the old flying saying, flying by the seat of your pants. And so, whenever I was connected to that boat, calmly, not, and really kind of gently focused on what I was trying to do, I could make that boat do anything, no matter what the wind and current was. And I know this is, and I find this difficult to articulate, and I'm going to try and continue to refine the way I articulate this in future videos, because to me, this is one of the most important aspects of consciously manifesting what we desire. So I just wanted to share this first part with you, and my intention is in videos over the next several days to talk more about what are the subtle things it takes to be able to have more control over our ability to consciously manifest what we're trying to do. So thanks for tuning in. Another beautiful day here in Colorado. A little different, about 15 degrees, but with this bright sunshine, it feels like it's about 50. I wish you well. Look forward to seeing you on future videos. Thanks a lot. Take care.